Welcome to Under the Sisterhood, where we honor female experiences. During each episode, I will have intimate conversations with women of all ages to get under the hood of their individual journeys through womanhood. Together, we'll pursue the many aspects of the female experience, creating a sacred space for women to share their stories, their ideas, and their wisdom. This is a podcast to celebrate women and recognize all that they do in our world. I'm Elizabeth Elfenbein. Let's get under the hood. Today, I'd like to welcome and honor Francilia Wilkins Rahim. Francilia is a daughter, sister, friend, thought leader, staunch advocate for diversity in procurement, development, and management, and she is the founder and CEO of RF Wilkins Consultants. She is a sought-after speaker on equity, inclusion, minority and women business development, the creation of economic opportunities for disadvantaged communities, and the diversification of corporate America. I couldn't be more honored to be getting under the hood with Francilia today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. It brings a smile to my face. My cheeks are hurting just to see what you're doing and how it brightens you up, and all of the love and energy that is the Elizabeth Elfenbein. So I am just so excited to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you for feeling it. I remember when I was presenting those ideas to Hakeem around self-esteem, building health esteem and self-esteem. And I remember presenting to you, and you got it, the passion behind it, but also the need for it. And so thank you so much. I mean, I think that Under the Sisterhood is something, it just happened to come at the right moment, but it's something I've been living with in my head for 4 years. I went through some major transitions, and I wanted to find a way to really honor women and give them voice and have them be seen. So this is a birth, a new child, the next phase of my life, and hopefully my legacy on behalf of women, my daughters, my sisters. And when I say my sisters, including yourself, the sisterhood that we create here. So why don't we get going with the questions? And we'll start with a really general one, which is really about, what does it mean to you to be a woman?
Wow, it's such a light question, but it's such a one with so much impact. What does it mean to be a woman? I think by just the nature of the world that we live in and society that we live in, that being a woman looks and feels like there's a lot of different things on your plate, and you're expected to juggle those things and to do them successfully, and to do it without complaining, and to do it, bring in positive vibration and energy, and to just get it done. And that's womanhood, and not to necessarily be appreciated while doing it. You know what I mean? Just to do it and get it done. I think that's what, it feels like sometimes to be a woman means. You're a torch of empowerment. I think we women, we are the creation. We are what creates human beings and human the whole world. It all starts with us. We are Mother Earth. We are life. We are light. We are the energetic powers that just, allow things to thrive and build. That's what it means to me to be a woman. It's this understanding that we're born with this innate power. And although when you look around the world and you look at how we're engaged, there's always this fight to take that power away. You only have that fight. And whether it's you're a woman, you're a Black or brown person, that fight to pull your power away it only happens when people understand the extent at which you can take that power and do whatever you want with it, right? So that's when people start to fight and try to put barriers up for you not to succeed. And I think as a woman, we know, or what it means is that we are born with this innate light and this innate power, and we can choose to leverage it however we want to. So that's what it means to me.
Oh, I love that answer. And to be honest with you, it's very close to some of mine, which is we are creators. We create the world. I mean, so wow. I'm blown away by that. You really hit me deeply. So what has your female experience been like? And what I mean by that is, being a woman, there's many different stages. And so I ask what your female experience is like, and what point did you realize you or recognize that you were a woman? So,
wow. So it's so interesting. What point did I recognize that I was a woman? I think, so I have a interesting, unique story from the beginning, right? I'm Liberian. My family is Liberian. And my mother was the assistant minister of agriculture for the country. And my father was a petroleum geologist, and he would travel all over, and my parents traveled a whole lot. So all was well. They were like, at my age, my mother was like almost second in charge of an entire country. She would represent the nation. I had no idea of any of this, I'll tell you, until I was in college, by the way, of what she did. And I'll explain to you why. So when I was young, probably 3 or 4 years old, a war broke out in Liberia. And like many Liberians, my family, came to the United States. They had been back and forth in the United States. But my mother would always tell the story, and every graduation, my parents would tell the story about running through dead bodies during the war to get their kids out of the country. And my mother, the reason why I didn't know about what she did until I was like 23 years old was because she said to herself, she had the opportunity to get us out earlier, but Liberia was a very stable country. It was a place where people would go for vacation. It was beautiful. All the Black Americans from the United States and everyone would go to Liberia in the 70s and 60s. It was like the place to be. So no one thought there was truly going to be this devastation at this level. And she was out of the country in Europe when war broke out. And she came back and she felt that she had the opportunity to get us out earlier. And she didn't, because no one just believed it would happen. And she said, I promised that I would commit my life to my kids. God, if I can get my kids out of this country alive, I will commit to them, and I'm not putting work first. And she never did. And she never shared until I grew older. I was doing a Google paper online and for college. And I was looking up the country Liberia, and I find my mother's name in a room of all the presidents of the nation. She was there representing Liberia. And I interviewed her, and that's how I found out the depth of what she was in that country. Okay. So I'm saying all this to back up to your question, which was like, when did I, realize that I was a woman? At that time, my family lost everything. And they would tell that story about me, little girl Francilia, running across dead bodies to get out of the country. They couldn't hold me because my mother was pregnant, and my little sister, she was holding my little sister. My parents got split up. Father almost died. So I had to run by myself. And they always would share at the graduation that they told me, sing a song. And there was some song they told me to sing, and I was like crying and singing the song and running through the dead bodies, okay? And I don't have a visual remembrance of that. I just remember my first day of life was in New York City. My parents, they came to New York. We lived in an apartment building in project buildings in Vanderveer in Brooklyn. And I just remember the first part of my life in Brooklyn. I didn't know we weren't well off. We lived with my aunts and my cousins. There was like about 13 of us in this 1-bedroom apartment. I had no idea. Like as a kid, you're just living your best life. So my memory starts there. But I think that throughout my life, I have always had this innate kind of understanding. I feel like that I feel like I can take more than others. And I don't think that's always been a good thing. But to answer that question, I think as a child, I think that was the point when I realized I was a woman, right? And I had this burden. I had to do it and to be strong and be okay. And I feel like that, running through those, a child shouldn't have to experience that, right? And I think that at that point is when I came up in my head, and it has been something that has, lived the lifetime of me thus far, that I had to be strong and that I had to get through. And then it just had to be, it just had to be done. So I think that is the point when I realized that I was a girl. I wasn't a woman at that point. but I think that was a changing point for me. And I feel like they would always say, like, even as a kid, I was a grown child. Like my mentality was always pretty grown up. So for me, I think that was the transition point. And from there on, I was just, more mature than others in my thinking of, I have to take on more. This is just what it is. And that has perpetuated kind of that womanhood conversation. I think that was the point when I realized that, this is woman and this is what it looks like. Was it the best point? Not necessarily. I think the only other thing I would say is growing up and transitioning now into what is truly a woman, meaning I'm no longer a kid, right? And I'm beyond 18 years old and whatever. There were just so many different experiences. I think I had an overall really great childhood. But I just, like, many other women, I experienced, molestation at a point in childhood. And, it was a relative, and my mother, I remember telling my mother when it happened, and my mother almost lost her head. And she, like, went to my aunt and was like, just basically, it was like a whole big thing. But I think that those little things grow you up, right? And I think that as you are older now, they grow you up sooner than that point in which you turn 18. So I think the womanhood starts, when you're a kid for a lot of girls, because of the thoughts that you're learning. So I learned to be strong, right? I learned about the physical body early, right? And how it could be impacted and taken advantage of. And in that moment, that was another moment when I go back and say, in that moment, I remember thinking, like, oh, I got to be strong. But, I still told my mom. So I learned, that, there are grownups who are there and they take care of you and you could go to them, right? So there's support systems. Okay. And then as I grew older, and, still as a child, I learned about, just all the different pieces of life. So before becoming 18 and officially a woman, all of those things assisted me learning, how and when and to be a woman.
Wow. I don't, I don't even know how to begin to unpack that, because I know you as this big, wonderful presence, brilliant strategist, businesswoman, wife, just community leader, advocate. Like, you're just such a powerhouse. But, it's interesting because I've had a lot of discussions, not just with women, but, over the past couple of years about, how you did that and why you don't know, because you put on survival mode.
Right.
And that's why you could endure all these other little things, running through dead bodies to get to America. I mean, I'm just blown away by that story. Your poor mother, I mean, wow. But it makes sense for where you are and who you are. It's just, you stand so strong, so tall, such light, so much gratitude. And I think that that's amazing. I mean, thank you for sharing that. And I'm really sorry, truly sorry that you had to grow up so young. And I'm not saying from just running through the dead bodies. Nobody should have to do that. That is just horrifying. But to hear your story about, inappropriate abuse, at a young age, and figuring out, and that's how you're learning you're a woman by being taken advantage of. So I'm really sorry. Thank you for sharing that and opening up, because I know that women in general, want to talk about it. This is not normal. It's not right. And it's not how you should experience being a woman. So on a lighter side, which I think you're serious, even though you have a big giant smile all the time. You have to be careful of those. My son's like that, big smile, but so much going on inside. So what would you, with everything you've been through, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? So imagine I, Elizabeth, am Francilia, and I'm 18. You get to see me. So you're mirroring me. I'm 18. Of course, I'm not beautiful like Francilia, but anyway, what would you tell me? Like, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself?
I feel like I still feel like I'm my 18-year-old self. I'll tell you that right now. I'm a little more good. I'm more mature. I still feel like I have my 18-year-old self energy, though. That's for sure. I think that I would tell an 18-year-old self, like you'll achieve everything that you want to achieve. So slow down and take in all of the different moments. I feel like, today I've built this company and we're building and we're continue to grow and we're so successful. And I'll share about that, whenever we get there. But when I look back, if you talk to any one of my close friends, they'll tell you, she's always been like this. Like, she's always been the one running in when I was 16, I did the largest fundraiser in the history of my high school. You know what I mean? And this huge event, and just everyone was flabbergasted about it. And I've always been running to get to this next thing or do this big project or whatever. And I think when I look back, there'll be times my mind just kind of forget certain moments, right? It's I have so much going on over here that I'll forget about little moments. So my best friend, Tanya, she's always, I'm like, okay, when it's time to write the book, you have to help me write the book because you remember everything. So she remembers all of our moments. She remembers everything. High school, we've been friends since in high school. So she remembers all of these little, remember when you said, and you remember we did, I'll be like, I don't remember that thing at all. Right. And I think it's because I've always been moving, growing, building. And I think it's interesting you mentioned my husband, Hakeem. He's my balancing act now because he slows down. When you talk mental health and everything like that, that was never in my lens of conversation. It was always I'm good. I'm doing, movement. I've always been moving. Right. And I think that, I lucked out. I had a beautiful childhood, beautiful, amazing parents. Unfortunately, I just lost my father 6 months ago. I grew up in love. I grew up in parents that put everything down for us to succeed and be happy. And, I had a great childhood. But I think that I've always been on the move, on the go. An 18-year-old friend, I would say, take a second and take it in. Take a second and pause, take a second and take it in, because you're not going to get those moments back, right? So enjoy the times that you have, take a second and take it all in.
So I think that is a phenomenal one. And I think that I would take your advice to my 18-year-old self, because I was always moving. And it isn't until my, late 50s that I'm not moving. I mean, I'm moving on my bike, I walk, but I do things in nature to have that peace and that serenity. And so I hope that you can, leaving this conversation, you will take that and realize, because what the thing is that I've learned, Francilia, is that we keep going and achieving and accomplishing. And I guess at what point, it's just finding how to have a balance, and having that space and time for you. But you're going to do amazing things because it's just the way you're built. I mean, and I mean, seriously, from the moment I met you, I know I'm like Hakeem's in really good hands. She's fabulous. So anyway, moving right along, I think this question's a really good one. How do you feel about being a woman in today's world?
I think, well, the first thing is, I think that as women in today's world, we have a lot of opportunity. And I think sometimes because the world is sometimes set up to make us feel less than, not enough, not equal to, whatever it may be, that we sometimes allow those external factors to come into the way in which we think about ourselves, right? And the reality is, no, we are powerful, we are light, we are energy, we are all of these things. I think that we have an opportunity to grab whatever it is we want, to define whatever it is we want, and to grab it. And to just really, shine in whatever way we decide to. I think that we're having an interesting turn right now, and COVID supercharged this, right? Where we've always been used to this society. I know me, like where like work was prioritized, you know, professions were prioritized, scaling and, you know, all of those things were prioritized. But now we're in a world, and this next generation of folk are like, these young people, they're just a different beast. Like there's a more of a prioritization now of just overall like wellness, and well-being and all of these things in this new world. So it allows us, you know, and I'm still a young woman myself, but it allows us now to everyone now to say, I'm going to take a second and think about my health and my wellness and all of those things, right? And so I think being a woman in today's world, we have a dual opportunity to be mother, to be sister, to be daughter, but then to actually take a second and take care of ourselves. And it's not as frowned upon as it would have been even 2 years ago, pre-COVID. I think we now have a opportunity to this. I'm telling you, I don't think there's anything work-life balance. I don't think it exists. I think it's like a kind of up and down seesaw situation. And sometimes it's a little up here and sometimes, and it's just, I feel like that's how things work. But I do think that in this world today, we have opportunities and a lot of choices. It's so interesting, the new, you know, legislation that's attacking our womb and ovaries and everything else as it pertains to motherhood, because it's almost like that same statement that I said about us having opportunities and choice and voice. It's like we've reversed and almost gone backwards like 100 years. And so I just wonder how that'll fold out and how it will impact, you know, womanhood and what it means to be woman today and in the next today. But for now, I think that, you know, we're moving towards more opportunity, more access, more empowerment. And it's not in a way that society is giving it to us. No, now we're moving in a way that we're taking it and we're not afraid to take it. We're like, okay, I'm going to create my own narrative and my own story. I'm going to take care of my health. I'm going to share when I don't like something. I'm going to, you know, show myself as woman in all the different forms, as woman, as businesswoman, as mother, as sister, as, you know, sexual being, as whatever it is. I'm more open to that now because I'm choosing to take that. And I don't really care anymore what the rest of the folk are saying. I'm just doing what I want. So that's what I think it means to be a woman today.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, there's so many different things to unpack there. One of the things that just gets me thinking is the duality. On one hand, you say there's so much opportunity for women and all you have to do is take it. And on the other hand, it's being taken away from a legislation perspective. But I think you hit on something interesting strategically, which is if women continue to take what's theirs, they will find their way. Right. They will find their way, but they have to keep taking it. And I think that that's maybe the difference. Yes, we've gone backwards. Did we go backwards 100 years? I don't think so. And I'll tell you why, just for what you said, which is because women have learned to take it, to take what's theirs, to lean in, to take their power, to take their space, to do to take their opportunities, the things that they choose to do. And to your point, whether it's at you know, in the workforce, whether it's at home, whether it's political, women have more of a voice. They need an even greater voice. They need to be heard more. They need to be seen more. They need to be more visible and valued. But I do think there's opportunity. But I think the thing that for me that I was left with on last Friday's decisions was more, you know, it's not just a lack of choice of someone else choosing something for me. It's sort of the morality in all of it. I just feel like it's just so friggin' wrong. Right. And it's just so, I don't even want to waste my energy having that conversation because the conversation shouldn't exist in the first place. It's so friggin' bizarre. But anyway, so I won't go down that rabbit hole because we could keep going. But I think to your point of the fact that we have more opportunities, I would agree with that. I think the difference between today and 100 years ago was not just that we have opportunities, but women are more empowered to take them. To take their time off, to take and do the self-care they need to do and not feel. And I think you're right, actually, that COVID and the pandemic has forced everybody to reevaluate how they deal with their circumstances, how they how they, not just work-life balance, but how balanced they are in general, because people felt so isolated. All these restrictions imposed on them forced them to think differently. So I think that's really interesting. I think you're right that was an inflection point. I didn't think of that before. So thank you for that one. You know, so that's what it's like to you to be a woman in today's world. So here we are, we're in today's world. What would you change, if anything, or everything, to make the world better for women? Like, what would you do today?
I would, I'm in business, and I am, I sleep, eat, breathe, business. I run a consulting firm right now. We do a lot of project management based work. I'm building a second firm that it hasn't been announced yet, but we're in the process of building the nation's first African-American woman-owned business incubator and accelerator that's targeted towards Black and brown businesses, and women-owned businesses, but anchored in health and beauty manufacturing labs. So we're building this mega 40,000 square foot project, and it'll be announced pretty soon. Well, here's the sneak peek, I guess. So business is it, and then at the same time, I'm running my existing firm, right, which we've scaled from a company that I started at age 23. And now 11, 12 years later, we've scaled to one of the top African-American women-owned companies in the nation by revenue, top 0.1%. And so
Congratulations. You need it. That's awesome. I'm so happy and proud of you. So happy for you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Great news.
Yes. And I look at things from a lens of business. Why? Because I feel like business is the great equalizer, right? When it comes to economics. Okay. And let me explain this. In these here United States, I always say that we are a capitalistic society. It just is what it is, right? And business is a big piece of that engine, okay? For minorities, and especially for women, and if we can play in that economic engine, we get even more opportunities. And not only do we get even more opportunities, but then we get a platform through which we can create opportunities and spaces for others. So when I started this firm, I said I wanted it to be one of the most diverse places to work, but also a place where you had diverse people, women, diverse ages, diverse nationalities here, feeling good and doing viable work, right? And I remember there's so many staff that came and they had so much workplace trauma. Today we have over 20, almost 20 something staff, and with our full-time and our project-based staff, but there was so much trauma and so much I'm not good enough, and I've always not been put in a position to, and all my other work, just like crazy stories. I'd be like, what world do we still live in, right? And so it told me that there is so much opportunity. So to get back to the question, I think that for me, it starts in the lens of business, because I think that you can create economic opportunities for others. I feel like you can create opportunities for scale. I feel like you can create opportunities for people to have jobs when you own a company, right? And when you create opportunities for people to have jobs, you can create opportunities for people to be paid well. And when you do that, then you can create opportunities for their families to do well and for their kids to be in better schools. And I can define, right, if I want to have, in this new project we're building, it's a space for business owners and entrepreneurs to scale. But we said, what would it look like if we built a childcare facility in this 40,000 square feet, right? We're going to have a bunch of different businesses, a lot of them women-owned. What if we had a separate, just small facility where people could access for cheap and free, so that they continue to impact the greater world through business? So I think that business is that tool that can allow for impact and for growth and for scale. And so I look at that question in the lens of business, and leveraging that as a tool to support every other thing, every other group economically, every other group, across the spectrum, and then allow spaces for people to scale, grow, and be great.
I love that answer, and congratulations. Wow, that's exciting. I can't wait to know and learn more about it and see it and all of that. And who knows where I'll be. Maybe I'll be one of those women-owned businesses. But
Yeah.
but I think that changing your impact, Francilia Wilkins, your impact will be creating businesses, a platform. Actually, a platform's better, because a platform where women can be involved in businesses so that they can perpetuate success and life and happiness and all these things. They can continue to grow. They can grow their children. They can grow their families. They can grow themselves, because it's a really powerful thing, by the way, being in business. I mean, I was never destined to be a stay-at-home mom. I love my children. They are I love them so deeply. I can't even begin to describe the feelings I feel for them. In my late 50s, I can still feel them in my womb. It's a physical thing. But you know what? I would have been, my mind, I'm a goer, a doer, a mover, and I have to keep building things. So I can so relate. So this answer of creating business opportunities for women, a platform for women to be able to bring their business, whatever that may be, to life and to success. And then to your point of like setting up future generations, it's, in a way, it's just perpetuating, it's role modeling, right? Yeah. So the business becomes the tool that we get to role model to our children and their children, the power that women actually have, all that we can do, you know? Right. And so I think that that's a wonderful answer, and that's a unique answer. And I think it's great coming from you. So thank you for that. So this question's a little different because we're just on the subject of business, but I do think actually it does relate to business when it's good, when it's really good. Do you feel part of a sisterhood?
Well, interestingly, I do. I am. And I'm actually in a true sisterhood. I'm in a sorority. So I am a member. Now, you wouldn't know from all the blues because our colors are crimson and cream, but I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are a organization founded on service, you know, to serve our communities. We are one of the older second oldest African-American women sororities. And we just, social service is the name of public service, is the name of the game. And so we invest into politics. We invest our voices, our monies, our pockets, our energies into communities. We invest in education. We invest in young people. And that is the foundation of my organization as a member of Delta. And so that is one sisterhood that I am a part of. And that is, I became a member in college. I always say one of the greatest decisions that I've made to date. I am so close to my sorority sisters. One of my line sisters just was married 2 weeks ago now. They have been in every part and every step of my life, you know, since we've connected. And then I am a sister in a sisterhood with my actual blood sisters, right? And so that's another sisterhood. I am the second eldest. I have an older sister and a younger sister. And, you know, we have experienced, you know, growing up together. We have a unique experience that only we can understand because we've lived that experience together, and that sisterhood is there. I feel like when my father just recently passed away, we are all in different places, but it forced us to learn each other a little bit more and kind of like get to know each other a bit more. Because since, you know, college, I feel like for me, we've all been in separate places, you know, and I think it forced us to understand how to work with each other and then see each other from the lens of like, we're women, you know, we're no longer children. So I have a sisterhood there. And then I have a sisterhood with my closest friends. So I have a group of friends, again, from high school. We've been friends ever since, over 20 plus years. And we sit on a text listserv together, and we're always touching base with each other's life. And they were my bridesmaids, and I've been many of their bridesmaids, and we've been together through the babies and all of the different things that are life as a woman. So I think I've been actually really, really blessed to be surrounded, to have multiple sisterhoods. I think finally I have work sisterhoods. I have work sister friends, people that I've met through work that I have been blessed to really grow strong, true, candid relationships with. And I think that in the space of business, as a woman in business, there's not too many of us at a certain scale, right? And I think that they always say it's a dog-eat-dog world, but like, I think that, you know, the women, a lot of the women that I have been able to encounter, we formed a sisterhood and a space of bonding and a place where we could be a little more transparent with each other and, you know, a little bit more candid and have certain conversations and be support. And I feel like certain women have shown up for me, Miss Patience, Menike, and you know, McKissick and McKissick Show, McKissick, Blondell Pinnock, such a great friend, Stacy Grant. I'm thinking of these folks, and I know I'm missing people, but there's been people who have stood for me and who have connected to me in a way that's beyond just like the work relationship or trying to leverage each other for something or, you know, foolishness like that. There's been real connectivity. So I think I have multiple sisterhoods. I think that I'm blessed with that because I don't know if a lot of people are, but I've been really blessed to have great sisters who stand for me, sisters and sorors and sister friends and work women sisters. And I've been blessed with sisterhood.
Well, wow, you are incredibly fortunate. If you can feel like you're part of one sisterhood, you're a lucky woman. So for you, but it's not surprising because first of all, you make the effort to stay in touch, but you're just such a wonderfully warm and kind soul and so giving. So it makes total sense to me that you would be able to keep all these women in your life. That's a lot of work. So, and that's a lot of love. So clearly you value and you understand the importance of sisterhood, which is, it's really touching. It's really nice to hear that. So this is our last question, and, you know, we're going to be closing the conversation. But this is your platform today, Francilia. If you were speaking to women 18 to 100 of different backgrounds, of different cultures, you know, what's your message? What do you want them to know from Francilia? Like, what do you feel you have that could really, you know, this is your opportunity to say something that could affect and impart change.
I think what I would say to women is, you know, one, do your darndest, the best you can to always bring positive energy to other women and people around you. Give people grace, right? Because we live in such a fast-paced society where there's so much stuff going on. Everyone is going through something and you don't know the next person's story, right? And so you can't always control how people show up for or towards you, but you can show how you show up towards others, right? So I always say, I always tell folks, it's so hard to get me mad, like to really, really make me angry. Like there's a few folk who could do it, one of which is my sister, and then my husband next, right? But it's really a rare thing. Even I talked about that sisterhood. My best friend always says, I've known you for over 20 something years. I don't even know if I can count on half a hand how many times I've seen you get really mad, right? And it's because I always say, I don't take anybody too seriously. Like I give folk grace because I understand that, especially as women, there's so many different factors that impact our way of being, right? So be kind, give grace, and put out positive energy. As a woman, you know, that is one thing that you can do externally. Internally, I would say, be your own motivator, right? You don't need to have the external cheerleader, you know, cheering you on. It's great at many times, But if you can get that internal voice, the thing that's going to be, you know, the thing that puts you down, the thing that talks negative about yourself, the thing that says, oh, I'm too fat to do this, or I'm too stupid to do this, or too slow to do this, or not good enough, not pretty enough, whatever. If you can just work internally on that internal voice, the thing that's your great doubter, the thing that's your biggest critic, and start being a little nicer to yourself. If that's the one thing that you can do, then you've achieved a whole lot. And that other external I talked about, you know, showing up kind and people and graceful with people, it'll handle itself, right? So that is it. That's what I would leave women of the world with.
Got my goosebumps. I love the external and internal message. I think leaving this conversation, you know, clearly, boy, your mother did an awesome job. Like, just, you know what she did? She helped you recognize that that internal voice is the most important voice. So my mom did that in a different kind of way, but it sounds like yours was very deliberate. And I think that's a great message to give women of all ages. Be your own advocate. Those weren't your words, but be your internal advocate. Love yourself. Be your best self. Understand that you can do. Nobody's perfect. Right. We're all human, but believe and be your internal voice and your own internal cheerleader, and don't look for external validation. But I like the external in a different context. So internal, external, but then you said, look, externally, things are going on with people we don't know. Right. So putting out that positive energy, having that grace for other people, being kind, so easy, by the way. It doesn't cost you a damn thing. You feel pretty, but you can feel pretty damn good doing it. Right. And the other thing doesn't cost you anything, and you can achieve and accomplish, having that internal voice as your cheerleader. You can accomplish anything you set your mind to. So clearly, I think you have a lot there, Francilia. You have figured out the puzzle.
Oh no, not yet. I'm still figuring.
But in general, I think that you have a good understanding of all that it takes. And, you know, I mean, this has been just an awesome conversation. I feel so honored and grateful and really humbled. I mean, to hear your story, everybody has a story, and stories are more complicated and more challenging than other stories. And, you know, you live your life with such grace and gratitude. And I just watch it, and it gives me a big smile. And, you're just a very impressive woman and sister. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for such great questions and such a positive interview. And I'm so happy to get under this hood. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. We hope you will join us next episode to honor amazing women from around the world. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood, LLC, and Elizabeth Elfenbein. Produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Zach Slapp, and edited by Zach Slapp. The music is by Ayla Schaefer. Her song, Rose.